watched a film last night called Official Secrets, which starred Keira Knightley playing the role of Catherine Gunn, who worked at GCHQ. That was the global government communications headquarters, which was like a British intelligence agency. And she was a translator for them, and she would listening to conversations and translate things. And they were asked to kind of find dig up some dirt basically on some of the UN diplomats to try and bribe them basically as a request from the US so that they'd vote in favour of the Iraq war. And do you remember the whole business around about 2003 before Iraq was invaded? They were looking for weapons of mass destruction. So it was that whole kind of trying to get a mandate to go in there basically. And she leaked this memo to the Guardian? I think to the Observer, and she got in a lot of trouble for it, for standing up for what she thought was right, because she realised how illegal the war was, and spoke up, even though it cost her a lot. It's a true story. And she at first she was keeping quiet, but everybody was getting interviewed in the office, and one after another, she could see what her colleagues were going through. So she just ended up going into the office after she'd already kind of been interviewed and got past that process. She went in while one of her colleagues was getting interviewed, and just said, "Look, it was me. I did it." She was immediately arrested, and she's put on trial. But she eventually, when the court case came around, nearly a year later, the prosecution has said, "We do not wish to carry on with prosecution proceedings," and the defence was like, "Well, this is unusual. Well, great, we've got her off, but why not?" And it came out that if they'd have gone through with the proceedings, some of the documents would have become public, which would have been accessible to public scrutiny, and therefore it would have made the government at the time look really bad, and would have perhaps made the war in Iraq look very illegal. So they dropped proceedings. But it was a particular line in the film that really caught my attention, and it was this, that lady who was getting interviewed at the time and sweating profusely and worried that she was going to get in trouble. She visited Catherine Gunn and apologised to her, and Catherine Gunn just said to her, on the doorstep there, "You've done nothing wrong." And the lady said back to her, "But I did nothing right. I did nothing right." And those words just from that film just really spoke to me. I just thought, what? Sometimes we're going around too much trying, to do no wrong, but we're forgetting about the good that we ought to do. Romans chapter 7 verse 19, Paul condemns himself by saying, the good I ought to do, I do not do. And this is a message really for Christians, because I think we spend so much of our time trying to not do certain things, and probably feeling better about ourselves for the things that we don't do, but we forget about the good that we ought to do, that we don't do. And there's two different types of sins in a way. The sins of commission, the wrongs that we do, but there's also sins of omission, and that's the sins, the things that we ought to do that we don't do. The good that we ought to do that we don't do, that also is a sin. And I think the biggest one that we'll stand condemned for when our life is reviewed will be just how much we spoke up. Catherine Gunn spoke up for the truth, and and suffered for it. But in the end, she was exonerated. But that was a huge risk. But do we as Christians speak up for the truth? Do we tell people about Jesus, or do we go about our daily lives trying to kind of keep our head below the parapet and have an easy life? We've got to speak up for the truth. We've got to tell people of the hope we have. We've got to explain to people the love of God, and we've got to show them the hope that it is has come through the Lord Jesus and his sacrifice for sins. It's an amazing truth that we have. But do we go and tell people about it? I pray that we will. And I pray that we'll be given this unction to go out there and speak up, that we might do the good that we ought to do.